So it's Friday, so it's time for Poets. Some of us know that as Push Off Early, tomorrow's Saturday. But in this context, it's the Perioperative Enhancement Team. Inspired by Dr. Sol Aronson and the team at Duke, a selection of clips to get us thinking about the next steps in providing world-class perioperative care. You'll find the full lectures in our back catalogue, or join us at the upcoming Perioperative Practicum for expert discussions, business case tips, and hands-on workshops. Go to www.ebpom.org and look for our international programme of perioperative practicums.
Top Med Talk.
I am Desiree Chappell, host of Top Med Talk, and I'm joined this morning by Monty Mythen, Editor-in-Chief of Top Med Talk. Good morning, Monty.
Good, it's great to be back.
But this morning we have a very special guest with us who's also going to be talking about enhanced recovery, but looking kind of towards the future and different things that we can utilize in practice in these different perioperative quality initiatives, and it is Dr. Frederic Michard. Good morning, Frederic. How are you?
Good morning, Monty. Good morning, Desiree. My pleasure to be here.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you stopping by and chatting with us this morning. So, Frederic, tell us a little bit about what you're doing these days.
So what I'm doing these days, I'm a medical doctor. I spent 15 years working mainly in intensive care units. Mm-hmm. Then I spent some time working for industry, for a big company, actually, based in the U.S. And 3 years ago, I started my own consulting business. So I'm based in Switzerland, and I focus on medical innovation, technical innovation that actually could help us, anesthesiologists, intensivists, nurses, to improve patient safety, improve quality of surgical care.
So we both attended, over a year ago now, a round table about perioperative hypotension.
Yep.
And the post-operative one, paper 4, I think what everyone was shocked about is we didn't really have anything to discuss. Not that there wasn't a lot to discuss, if you see what I mean, but we didn't have any evidence to review because there's some out there, but it's such an underreported area. Well, what was reported was shocking. In other words, how frequently, from Dan Sessler again, there was post-operative instability when recorded.
Yes. But actually, when you start looking at that more closely, you find studies. There are already more than a few studies showing that, for example, hypoxemia is very common on the wards. There are studies where they monitor blindly arterial oxygen saturation and continuously on the wards, and then they were able to realize that first of all, hypoxemia is very common,
right, and
missed 90% of the time. There are new studies coming soon. They are not yet published, but with the exact same conclusions regarding blood pressure. Hypertension after surgery is very common and is missed most of the time just because, we measure blood pressure every 4 to 6 hours.
Yeah, and once usually you're grabbing them up and out of bed and they're already...
I think the evidence is growing, and we even have outcome studies already published, not with wireless systems, but I think the concept is the same. Studies from Belomo, studies from Andreas Tenzer are showing that when we use monitoring systems on the wards, we can decrease the number of ICU admissions, for example. We can decrease even mortality. There is a recent study from the UK, from Chris Sube, showing a decrease in mortality after the implementation of such a system on the wards.
So, if I may, Desiree, just one last thing. In the paper, Table 1, now we don't discuss specific products on the stand here, but you have a table in there which, if I'm counting right, there's 11 wearable, 11 different companies and 11 different stick-on thingies, and they look to me like, big. They look about the sort of size of the distance between your forefinger and your thumb at most of them. Is that about right? Some of them are like the palms of your hand, but they stick on.
Yes,
and they monitor pulse rate, heart rate, ECG, ventilatory frequency. One of them does pulse oximetry. One of them has a go at blood pressure, a little bit about temperature. Everyone should have a look. Table 1, Michard and Sessler, British Journal of Anesthesia, not promoting any specific product, but there are 11 choices there.
And probably today it's more than 11, because what's funny with this editorial is that actually I had to update the table after the first revision and the second revision.
Wow, because there were that many new ones.
And that's also the beauty of what I'm doing now, is that there are so many companies, and I'm sure, by the way, I probably missed some products which are already approved for medical use. Because, by the way, what you did not say, Monty, is that these are not gadgets. No. These are products which are approved for medical use,
and the FDA,
at least in Europe and in the US.
Oh. So the title is Medical Grade
Exactly.
Adhesive Patches for Physiological Monitoring, BP, heart rate, pulse rate, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So it's out there.
Yeah.
It's out there. We need more validation studies. These are new products. There are a few validation studies. So, we definitely need more studies to ensure they clearly measure what they are supposed to measure. And then, of course, the next step will be to also see if there is an impact on outcome.
Yeah. One thing that I love about it, and as a nurse, myself and have worked in the wards, and knowing that your time is limited, and there are specific there are patients I can think back to, and it would have been wonderful to have a continuous monitor on them that was non-invasive, and that they didn't have to be attached to anything. So I think that's great. So with enhanced recovery programs, we're sending people home a lot earlier than we have ever before, and probably those patients may need or should maybe have a little bit more monitoring. Are these particular devices, or are there other devices on the market that we can send them home with these?
Clearly this is to me the next step. But actually for many companies this is not the next step. They start by home monitoring because it's a much bigger market. So it's a much bigger opportunity for them. But personally I think we should go step by step, understand what these new technologies can bring us on the wards. It's under control. We better understand what's happening in the hospital than outside. But technically speaking, of course, there is no reason to believe that in 5 years from now, a patient will be discharged at a very early stage, will be monitored from home, and will have smart system developed to inform clinicians when needed.
Yeah, I think that's great. Well, yesterday we did, like I said, we were able to speak with Frederic about some different things that he sees as the future of care and enhanced recovery. And I saw his presentation on Friday, and he actually put your all's paper up and was talking about the importance of doing ward monitoring and failure to rescue patients. We shouldn't have that. We should be able to monitor these patients non-invasively. So that was really cool to kind of see the synergy, or to see all that working together.
Exactly. And honestly, a couple of years ago when I met Frederic for the first time, I was really amazed because he's a pioneer, as you said. He developed all this concept. And when I started to discuss with him about, my excitement about new technologies, he was already on board. Actually, he was already doing studies with wearable sensors to track activity. To quantify rehabilitation, early mobilization. Because we often say we cannot improve what we don't measure. So now we even have tools. I'm not going to give any name, Monty, but there are even consumer products which are used in hospitals to quantify the physical activity of patients, particularly after orthopedic surgery.
Yeah, that's great.
So Frederic is clearly as patient for that as well. And he's publishing, we can check on PubMed, you will see publication from Frederic Kellett about wireless technologies.
I think one of the messages we got from him yesterday is we've done quite a huge amount based on his leadership to enhance surgical recovery, but we still don't completely understand the pathophysiology of surgical recovery. So if we don't monitor it and measure it, we can't really understand it, and if we don't understand it, we can't look at the biology, which means we can't work out how to fix it. So I think they all feed into each other.
I agree. I think what you are saying is that we are going to learn. Actually, it's not only having new technologies to monitor continuously, something we understand very well today, but monitor only intermittently. I think we are going to learn from the patterns. For example, blood pressure. We don't really know about the daily oscillation of blood pressure. What's normal, what's not normal, what is associated with complications or not. So I think having also these continuous signals will be the opportunity to better understand the physiology and probably ultimately to better treat our patients.
Because we've done a number of interviews this year about artificial intelligence. We know that devices have been approved now by regulators in Europe and the FDA that utilize artificial intelligence and machine learning to look at the complexity in those signals. And as those signals get richer, that's only going to get better and better, isn't it? Isn't that going to change it?
Yeah, I think so. We have to be careful because I think artificial intelligence is really a buzzword. So we have to be careful. We have to behave as we always did, and perform clinical studies, technical studies, validation studies. But the potential is obviously huge. And I would say it's even mandatory. If, I mentioned the fact that if tomorrow we use these sensors in ambulatory patients, first of all, we need to have very robust software to filter all the artifacts.
Yes.
And also, if we envision to monitor patients on the wards, There is no way we are going to give nurses 5 variables to look at the same time. So for this integration, so far what's very popular is to use early warning score, but these are very basic integration. You just add a score for respiratory rate, another one for heart rate, and so on and so forth. We can do better. We already know we can do better with machine learning algorithms. There are already studies published from Marilyn Ravnak, for example, from UPMC. They can predict at an earlier stage just by combining these variables together with very smart algorithm.
Can I ask one more thing?
Please, yes.
So I've got 2 more things, Frederic. One is bed sensors, and the other one is facial recognition. So I went to visit a relative of mine who runs a care home in Ireland. They will all remain nameless, but all their beds have sensors in them.
Yep.
So when the people, particularly in their dementia unit, get up in the middle of the night out of the sudden, it's sensed. But also their movement in the bed is sensed. So if their normal sleeping patterns is deranged, they get a more detailed check to see if they're becoming unwell or dehydrated. Is that a...
I mean, as you said, we're not going to give any name, but I mean, this technology or these kind of technologies do exist. They are approved by the FDA. I will even tell you, there is even an outcome study showing that if you use a contact-free sensor, so it's basically a sensor you leave under the mattress, it's not only able to record, as you describe, the movement of the patient, it's also able to record or to feel the pulse, so the heart rate and the respiratory rate. And there is already an outcome study published, I think, in the American Journal of Medicine showing a value for these technologies. The only limitation is, of course, it's not for ambulatory patients.
No.
Yeah.
And I think you will agree that early mobilization is one of the key elements of these programs.
It also gives you a live bed census as well, which is important, because often we don't know how many of our beds are filled in UK hospitals. The last one is facial recognition, which is being spoken about quite a lot, that you can... A camera to detect a signal and see illness.
So I think today it's already possible to measure heart rate. It's pretty easy actually to detect the very small changes in the color of your face with your heartbeats. So there are validation studies showing that it's possible to measure heart rate. Actually, even with your cell phone, Desiree. I mean, there are apps where. You just look at your cell phone, but you don't take a selfie. Okay, you ask the app to measure your heart rate, and then you have the information. I know some people, some companies working on the measurement of SpO2, arterial oxygen saturation, respiratory rate. It's also in the pipe. So you're right, Monty. We can also envision to have not only patch on the skin, but video cameras in the rooms able to monitor our most vital signs. It's coming.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Frederic, thank you so much for joining us and talking about all this really innovative, and you are an innovator, but talking about all this really cool tech and really kind of how we use it practically, how we're going to be able to use it in the future to take better care of our patients. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
We are now if people want to find you, Frederic.
Yes.
So I think the best is to visit my website. So it's michardconsulting.com.
Top Med Talk. Nick Majerison here. Thank you for listening to Top Med Talk. Now, make sure you've subscribed to Top Med Talk on your podcatcher or however it is that you're listening to us at the moment. And you're spoilt for choice. We're on pretty much every single podcast platform you could think of. So make sure you've subscribed. Make sure you've engaged with us on social media, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and make sure you've signed up for our email updates on topmedtalk.com. If you get yourself there, you'll find a website that contains all of the podcasts that we've ever done, and it gives you the chance to sign up for our email updates. That way we can always get in touch with you and tell you what we're up to. Finally, Top Med Talk is proud to act as the broadcasting arm of EBPOM, Evidence-Based Perioperative Medicine. We'd love you to find out more about them as well. ebpom.org is their website. That's ebpom.org. And if you go to ebpom.org/meetings, you can find out about some of the wonderful meetings that we attend and cover across the year here on Top Med Talk. That's ebpom.org/meetings.